What's up? We got Legends of Tomorrow, Season 2, Episode 7, Invasion Part 3. So this episode starts off with Oliver congratulating, saying thanks for them for driving Thea home because I guess Will Holland was busy not to be in this final episode. Or they just didn't need Thea in for the story because, so recall, Thea only appeared in the first part and the second. Why not appear in the third? So they're like, hey, we have to go to 1951 to get the original Dominator. So we see Nate in his helmet, which looks so bad. I usually like the helmets on the show, but Nate's helmet is just not that good. I'm sorry, Nate and the people who made the suit, but I'm not a big fan of it. It's just that it's red and blue and silver. That just doesn't mix well. I think Nate looks better with the suit on when the helmet's off of it. But with it on, it's just not my favorite. Anyway, so they go and they catch an alien, but they're about to catch the Dominator, but that's when they're all tranked. So they meet with they think they're meeting with the president, but then they meet with Smith, who basically reveals that yet again Barry's flashpoint messed up another thing. I don't know what to say. Stop doing this, Flash writers or Legend writers or Arrowverse writers. They're just like, oh yeah, when Barry created Flashpoint, he basically broke the space-time continuum, that basically broke the truth with the Dominators. Okay. I'm okay with this because one, this is referencing Flashpoint, which we didn't get to see, and since we didn't get to see it, it's obviously a big problem for me that they keep mentioning it every single time. Flashpoint did this, Flashpoint did that, and now Flashpoint has caused the Dominator's truth with the humans to be broken. Why couldn't you say that they lied and said the truth? They said truth, but then now they're back because it was a fake truth. Why bring Flashpoint into this? Because I'm already disappointed by the Flashpoint storyline as a whole because it was very underutilized, but every time they mention it, it's just like, I'll bring it back. As I was saying, I just have a problem with this whole, Flashpoint did all this, cause one thing we never get to see, again, this is what people have with this, what people think is wrong with this season, is that they keep mentioning Flashpoint. But Flashpoint did nothing. It was just a plot device to hype up fans. But it really didn't do anything. That's why I'm mad at Flashpoint. Because Flashpoint was said to be this grand mark event where Barry went back in time to save his mom's life, changing the timeline, only for it to be one episode. Yep, the whole hype was just thrown out the window to make this epic Season 2 finale that was great. But Season 3's premiere episode was okay, and now every time they mention this Flashpoint thing, it's just making me miss what could have been one of the greatest arcs in the Flash show as a whole. Flashpoint. It could have been, Flashpoint did a bunch of stuff that Barry didn't imagine, but nope, one episode now it's mentioned like it was a big deal. But guess what? It's not a big deal because it was only a one episode event. So I'm sorry, but Flashpoint couldn't have caused all this. So So he's basically like, Barry, you have to turn yourself in. And he's like, yeah. If you don't turn yourself in, the Dominators are going to create this meta bomb that's going to kill every metahuman. So back with Cisco and Felicity, who are on the wave ride because Cisco wanted to get away from Barry. They also mentioned Stranger Things because they want to remind you that that's popular. Yeah, so basically they get captured, and they talk to the Dominator, and the Dominator's like, this is one of the most confusing scenes. The Dominator is like, hey, hey, your Earth has been fun by metas or something, and then Maya's like, he's talking about the JSA, and I'm like, what? What does metas and the JSA have to do with each other, Amaya? What are you talking about? He says something about metas, and she's like, oh, he's talking about the JSA? Huh? What do the JSA and the metahuman have to do with each other? I don't get it. Why did they add this line? Because the line is so confusing. Because he's like, why'd you show up? And he's like, because of the metahuman. Because your planet is fondered with metahumans. And then Maya's like, he's talking about the JSA. How and why is he doing that? No, Maya, he's not talking about the JSA. He's talking about metahumans. The JSA are not a bunch of metas. I don't get why that line was added. I don't get why that line was needed. But it just doesn't make any sense. What is she talking about when he says about how the Earth is like fonder, how many humans are on the planet Earth? She's like, he must be talking about the JSA. How and why? And they also reveal that agents, the guy who trained Maya and Mick is actually the younger version of Agent Smith. Again, Maya, I don't get your whole thing. He's like, something about metas, and she's like, if you watch this episode, you know what he said, but if you don't, he has said something about how. Yeah, I will play the clip. Not actually, but yeah, I don't get what Maya says. He's like, your Earth is fondered with metahumans, and she's like, he's talking about the JSA. Moving on about that pointless and not pointless, that ridiculous scene where Maya says something that's out of nowhere and random and doesn't make any sense to why they're interrogated, and the JSA are metahumans. Or am I wrong? Or the JSA are metahumans? If they're not metahumans, then the Maya is totally confused and wrong. Because Maya is from the 40s, so. And yeah, so yeah. So so Stein and Caitlin are talking, and he's like, hey, I brought someone to help, and she reveals that she brought his daughter, Lily, and Stein basically doesn't talk to her, and she basically, talks about her past with him, which obviously he doesn't remember because he hasn't lived it yet, and she's like, hey, you haven't, you're acting like your daughter's a total stranger. And he's like, she is a total stranger, Caitlin. And she's like, is this because of Barry's flashpoint? And he's, no, this is because of him. He created a time aberration where she when he went back to meet his former self, when he met his younger self, he told him to spend more time with Clarissa, which indeed concealing a child. And he's like when what are you gonna do when this is all done? And he's like, are you saying when this is all done, you're going to erase your daughter Lily from existence? And Martin's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna fix, after this is done, I'm gonna fix, unlike Barry Allen, I know how to fix my mistakes. Very dig a Barry reference. So, yeah, so he, like, confronts her, and she's like, hey, what's up? And he's like, he loves, and he's like, I'm sorry, Lily, I love you. She's like, I love you too, and they hug it out, and then Barry, not really, but he gets a call from Barry, and she's like, what's going on? And he's like, it's his friend Barry. He's about to make a terrible mistake. So then we see Barry, and he's like, guys, I'm gonna give myself up to the Dominators. And he's like, yeah, but then Cisco realizes it. So Cisco vibes the Dominator, and the Dominator is like, oh, you're a meta. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, ooh, yeah. And Cisco reveals that he's very much like Barry because he changed the timeline by abducting a Dominator, like Barry changed the timeline and saving his mom. So this basically, so he's like, hey Barry, you're not just the Flash Barry. Cisco's like, you're not just the Flash Barry, you're my friend. So he and Barry are now cool again, because Cisco was able to forgive him because Cisco almost changed the timeline as well. So yeah. So yes. So yeah. So Ray builds a new amp suit. We find that he builds a new amp suit, and then there's a cool fight between the Dominators and Ray says, "See you later, Dominator." So they create him that kills all the Dominators and makes all the Dominators like go back and leave, and so they're honored by the new president, and they're honored as heroes by the new president, and Mick's like, ooh, she's hot, and Sarah's like, no, oh yeah, she's pretty hot. That was funny, and yeah, so. So then they decide to, so he's like, hey, yeah. Sorry, okay. He's like, hey, Barry, and he's like, hey, Mr. Smith, you're not supposed to, hey, Agent Smith, you're not supposed to be here, and he's like, Ice King. And Carla's like, hey, Agent Smith, I was talking to the president, and she's now decided to demote you and move you to Antarctica. That's what you get. Take that. That's my catchphrase. Take that. Take that. I don't know why, but it's my new catchphrase. Take that. So I type it in catchphrase. Again, take that. Take that, Smith. So yeah, so Sarah and Sarah and Oliver are talking, and Sarah's like, hey, you met what would happen if we never got on that boat? He's like, I think the Dominators kind of showed us what it would be like if that never happened. And Oliver's like, hey, Dick, I'm sorry for what I did for baby Sarah. And he's like, yeah, it's okay, Barry. And he's like, there she goes, Oliver, on her flying time ship. So yeah, so Barry and Oliver decide to have one last drink in a bar to end this crossover. And I gotta say, I liked it. I just didn't like the one thing I did like about this crossover was this episode. The Flashpoint stuff kind of made, I have been mad about Flashpoint. As I said before, Flashpoint could have been this glorious event arc that lasted, like Barry realized, like they could have done in episode 2 where Barry realizes, hey, he did something bad and changes the timeline, changes it back. But no, they made only one episode and references it all the time, and this episode does that too. And my whole thing of the Dominator talking about Mez, and she thinks he's talking about the JSA, that's just random. That's just out of nowhere. I was just like, Amaya, what are you talking about? I'm so confused about that. But this still was a good crossover. Cisco was able to forgive Barry because he almost changed the timeline like Barry did, and he was able to forgive him. So they're back on good terms. And also, everyone now knows that Caitlyn has powers. I liked in the first one where Carl was like, "You have power," to Caitlyn. You have power, but you can't use them. And then Felicity was like, "Caitlyn, you have powers," and then Caitlyn was like, "Yeah, long story." I'm surprised. I'm guessing she told that long story because yeah. But anyway, this was a pretty good episode of Legends. I enjoyed it. It was a pretty good episode. But anyway, that was it for this video, and I'll see you next time for more Legends of Tomorrow. Bam, Gravity Falls. Yeah, and remember, take that, Agent Smith. You're better than... Yeah, I think I like you better than Will Smith, yo. Agent Smith is a better... Will Smith is better than Agent Smith.